Have you ever noticed that the moments that truly test you never announce themselves politely? Chaos does not knock. It enters the room uninvited. A phone call that alters your life, a relationship suddenly in rupture, a career foundation cracking without warning, a family crisis erupting at the exact time you believed you had finally found stability. Most men believe strength is the ability to command the world into order, to make life obey their expectations. But real strength, the kind Jung was concerned with, is far quieter and immeasurably more powerful. It is the ability to remain intact when the external world refuses to cooperate. It is the capacity to stay whole when circumstances fracture around you. Today we will speak about becoming unshakable in chaos, not because you will avoid chaos, but because chaos is the great sculptor of psychological men. You asked how one becomes grounded when life storms around him. This is not about stoicism as an aesthetic or mindset hacks, or numbing yourself into cold detachment. It is about psychological adulthood, the transition from being a man whose inner stability depends on external conditions to being one who stands rooted in his own center, even when the ground beneath everyone else trembles. If your peace is based on life staying predictable, you are not peaceful. You are merely untested. Chaos is the examination that reveals who you truly are. Chaos, from a Jungian perspective, is not merely disorder or confusion. It is the encounter with the unconscious, yours and the world's. It is the moment when your persona, the mask you show the world, becomes insufficient. When the story you tell yourself about who you are proves too small for the situation you face. Chaos forces the confrontation between who you pretend to be and who you must become. In other words, chaos is not a punishment. Chaos is the initiation. 1. What stability actually is and what it isn't. Strength is often misunderstood. Many men imagine strength as rigidity, as the ability to stand motionless, unaffected. But rigidity is not strength. Rigidity is brittleness. The reed that bends survives the storm. The oak that refuses eventually splits. Psychological strength is elasticity with integrity, the ability to adapt without losing your center. Jung understood that the man who adopts a hardened persona, who insists on control at all times, becomes the most vulnerable to collapse. Chaos reveals his fragility because his identity is built on tension instead of integration. True stability does not mean immunity to emotion. It means capacity for it. A steady man is not the one who feels nothing. He is the one who can feel deeply without being thrown from himself. He does not fear chaos because he does not fear his own psyche. He knows his impulses, his fears, his vulnerability, his aggression, his tenderness. He is not surprised by himself or ashamed of himself. This inner familiarity is the foundation of steadiness. The man who is a stranger to himself has no anchor when the waters rise. Many men's apparent confidence is a negotiation with fear. They appear strong only when conditions support their image. Remove predictability and their composure disintegrates. But there is a different kind of man, one who may appear quiet, who may not perform his strength in public, who may not be the loudest in the room, yet when life fractures, he becomes still, clear, deliberate. Chaos does not unravel him, it reveals him. 2. How chaos shows up in daily life. Chaos rarely arrives as a dramatic explosion. It usually enters subtly, in daily moments that expose where your stability ends. You wake up one morning and something feels off. Your partner is withdrawn, and you cannot read her mood. Your child is melting down, and you do not have the patience you thought you had. A colleague undermines you, and suddenly your jaw tightens, your voice sharpens, and you feel the urge to prove yourself. You see a friend succeed, and instead of inspiration, a quiet bitterness rises. You check your bank account and feel your chest constrict. Not because you have nothing, but because some primitive part of you fears scarcity the moment uncertainty appears. These are micro-chaos events, and they are the gateway to understanding yourself. They are not random irritations. They are indicators of where your structure is incomplete. Disproportion reveals history. When your reaction is larger than the moment, the past is speaking. Projection reveals vulnerability. When you judge another man aggressively, often you are confronting a trait you have not yet accepted in yourself. Repetition reveals avoidance. When the same pattern returns across jobs, relationships, friendships, the universe is not cruel. It is patient. It repeats your lesson until you are ready to learn it. Chaos often looks like frustration. It looks like restlessness. It looks like scrolling and numbing. It looks like over-planning and control. It looks like lashing out at the wrong person because you are afraid to confront the right truth. Learn to see these moments not as failures, but as signals. Chaos is never random. It is always revelatory. 3. The boy who collapses and the man who stands. Every man carries an internal boy, and that boy learned how to handle chaos long before you knew you were learning anything. If chaos in your childhood meant unpredictability, criticism, humiliation, silence, or emotional volatility, your nervous system wired itself around survival, not presence. And when life becomes stressful now, the boy steps forward because he believes he still needs to protect you. The armor you developed, achievement, detachment, superiority, sarcasm, emotional withdrawal, constant busyness, was brilliant as a child. It kept you intact. But as a man, these same defenses often become prisons. Armoring keeps you safe at the cost of depth, connection, and true authority. A man collapses in chaos, not because he is weak, but because an unintegrated boy is trying to manage an adult world. He people-pleases because he once feared abandonment. He shuts down because feeling was once dangerous. He explodes because anger was never modeled cleanly, only violently, or not at all. He seeks external validation because internal validation was never taught. Chaos reveals where the child still runs the kingdom. The work is not to shame the boy. The work is to grow the man who knows how to take the throne. 4. Contact without fear. To become unshakable, you do not avoid chaos. You allow yourself to meet it honestly. You recognize the surge of emotion, the old contraction in your chest, the familiar voice saying, "You're failing," or "You're unsafe," or "You're alone." And instead of obeying it blindly or drowning in it, you witness it. You learn to say, "This reaction is older than this moment." That statement alone is evolution. It turns unconscious reaction into conscious presence. Maybe you feel rage when someone challenges your competence. Maybe you feel desperate when your partner is distant. Maybe you go numb when asked to express emotion. These reactions are not character flaws. They are messages. The unshakable man does not exile these feelings. He turns toward them, not to indulge them or dramatize them, but to understand them. Contact without collapse is the essence of self-leadership. To face chaos is to face yourself, and you cannot be harmed by the truth of your own psyche. You can only be strengthened by it. 5. Containment over control. There is a profound difference between control and containment. Control is fear-based. It seeks to eliminate variables. Containment is strength-based. It allows experience without being overtaken by it. Control says, I must manage everything to feel safe. Containment says, I can hold whatever arises and stay centered. A man who seeks control in chaos becomes brittle. He tries to force certainty and collapses when certainty refuses to appear. But a contained man can stay grounded in emotion, in intensity, in conflict, in confusion, and remain clean. He can say, I am angry, without becoming destructive. He can say, I am afraid, without abandoning himself. He can say, I don't know what happens next, without losing dignity or composure. Clean strength is not aggression. Clean strength is the ability to remain who you are in the presence of uncertainty. It is the refusal to outsource your center to circumstance. 6. The price of avoidance versus the reward of integration. Avoiding chaos, numbing, withdrawing, distracting, pretending, may feel safe in the moment, but it exacts a cost. Self-respect erodes, confidence decays, relationships become shallow, life shrinks. When you build a life designed to avoid stress, you inadvertently build a life too small for your potential. And the tragedy is not simply lost achievement, it is the quiet ache of unrealized selfhood. Integration, however, enlarges you. When you allow chaos to reveal where you are unsteady, you grow. When you face fear instead of bypassing it, you become capable. When you withstand discomfort without abandoning yourself, you become inwardly sovereign. Chaos does not diminish an integrated man. Chaos confirms him. And the reward is not dominance, it is dignity. 7. Archetypal perspective, the king who stands firm. In Jungian terms, chaos activates the archetypes. A man who collapses falls into the boy or the victim or the tyrant, all forms of unconscious reaction. But a man who integrates the warrior's clarity, the magician's insight, the lover's presence, and the king's steady benevolence becomes a different force entirely. The king is not defined by power over others, but power within oneself. His strength is not loud. His certainty is not brittle. He creates order not by suppressing chaos, but by holding it with authority. Humility stabilizes him because he knows he is learning. Responsibility strengthens him because he knows he is needed. Presence grounds him because he is rooted not in ego, but in essence. This is the man who becomes unshakable, not because chaos fears him, but because chaos cannot seduce him into abandonment of self. 8. Responsibility and brotherhood. You will not always stand perfectly. You will stumble. You will regress. You will be shaken. But your task is not perfection. It is reliability. To become unshakable is not to never fall. It is to never stay fallen. Men become grounded in solitude but remain grounded in brotherhood. Share your truth with men who do not flinch. Stand together. Witness one another. It is not weakness to be seen. It is maturity. Closing. You asked how to become unshakable in chaos. The answer is not to remove chaos. It is to deepen your roots. Let life test you. Let reality sharpen you. Let fear reveal where you are still unfinished. and meet every storm not with performance but with presence. The world does not need men who pretend invulnerability. It needs men who can feel and still remain steady. It needs men who can carry complexity with clean strength. It needs men who can lead without domination, who can hold space without shrinking, who can walk into uncertainty without handing their soul to fear. Be that man, not perfectly, reliably, and begin.